I'm here with Dr. Alex Gileles Hillel, and we met in Miami, and he invited me to Israel. So here I am sitting in the beautiful garden at Mount Scopus.
Thank you for coming.
And nice to see you. Nice to see you in your hometown. You came to my
Yes.
hometown, so nice to see you in yours. So just a little intro. Dr. Hilelis is a senior pediatric pulmonologist.
Yeah.
He also does sleep research. And his latest venture is that he's involved in the Organoid Center, which is part of the Wall Institute for Translational Medicine.
All true.
So thank you. So before we get into that, I know that you recently returned from the Poland medical mission. And I wanted to you just tell everyone a little bit about what that was like. First of all, why did you go?
Well, as we all remember, the first weeks of end of February, beginning of March, we've started seeing pictures of horrors happening across the border, and everybody was thinking, how can we help? How me as a doctor can assist in really a horrible situation that was unfolding. And I was looking somewhere to volunteer, and luckily I stumbled or heard about the Hadassah mission organized by Hadassah Women and Hadassah International, and basically we went there for rotating missions. I was in one of the first, and then the mission continued until almost recently, helping refugees on the Polish border coming from Ukraine. And it was really, it felt lucky to be in a position you can help with something that people in the worst moment of their lives encountered and were really uprooted from everything they know, and doing our small, little humanitarian effort felt like something that very, heartwarming, I would say, but for lack of a better word, yeah.
So I heard that the HMO team was really instrumental in organizing and coordinating the work that was going on there.
Right. What they found subsequently, after looking around, basically driving around the main points where the refugees were centered, that there was a very big shortage of medical aid on the border. Meaning people were coming from Ukraine, they were being organized in these transit centers, and the biggest one was in Shemeshel, which is a border town with actually a very strong Jewish history as well. And there was a very tiny clinic with the paramedics and kind of non-medical stuff organized by the Polish Red Cross, and Hadassah basically joined them and built a clinic that was functioning 24/7 with a pediatrician and an adult physician, and later on gynecologists also, and nurses, so we could provide kind of all-round basic care that someone would need when they're fleeing without basic medical stuff. Women, children, the elderly, these were the type of people we were seeing and treating common conditions, not anything heroic, you might think. So there was no major trauma, it was not a war zone.
But essential medicine.
But yeah, you still, the people who left their home without nothing, they basically need something to get them to their point of origin and help them in between.
Were you concerned about being in a war zone?
Not really. I mean, a fun story. A WHO representative who spoke to us on our way in. So, they were bombing on the Ukrainian border a couple of days before we came. So this was kind of in the background. But then we spoke to this representative, and she told us, "Did you bring gas mask?" And we're like, "What? Really?"
I'm sure your wife didn't like hearing that.
Yeah, I told her that really later on. I didn't tell her at the time. In any case, so we asked her why. Russians have used chemical weapons in Syria. They might do the same in Ukraine. And we were like, oh my God, we hope not. Anyway, this was really, as I said, it was something funny that we never had to really encounter ourselves.
So speaking of Russian, tell us a little bit about how your background played into this.
So I was born in Minsk, which is in Belarus, very close to the areas that are in the news currently. And I came to Israel when I was 10. And I'm not very connected to the Soviet or Russian culture, but I speak Russian fluently. I read Russian. I speak to my parents in Russian. I have even friends that are both in Belarus and even Russia and Ukraine. So it was very personal. It felt very personal because as opposed to Afghanistan, Iraq,
Right.
whatever sad stories we might hear in the news, it seems distant. But here I really related to the people who came, and this was also actually part of the what made it a special trip for me, because since I speak the language, most of the encounters with the patients began with what brings you here, and then the next question would be where are you coming from, and they would just spill the whole history of the long journey and the bombing and the shelling and the loss of their homes, and
Which was so important to them to be able to share
yeah,
that.
yeah. There was really you could feel it. I mean, we would go in a corridor and people would stop us and start telling this story. And since I speak the language, it was really emotional.
Right. Anything that stands out to you? Any patient encounter that really resonated?
Right. So two stories. I mean, they've been kind of in the news, but
But your take on it.
yeah, I mean, one was a girl, a 4-year-old, who came into the clinic and she was out of breath. She looked sick, and I immediately asked the mother what's wrong with her, and the answer I get is she has cystic fibrosis. Now, I was really in shock because cystic fibrosis is one center where I work here. I mean, here in Mount Scopus, we
Right,
have
right.
a National Center for Cystic Fibrosis. We're a world-renowned center. We have experts really top of their field, and it's not a common disease. It's not like I have asthma. It's a pretty rare disease. Apparently, there are 600 kids in Ukraine who have cystic fibrosis, about the same amount that we have in Israel. So, and I tell her, listen, I'm a specialist in this disease, and she doesn't believe it. And
Right.
we start talking about it, and we ended up talking for whole 2 hours about the care of cystic fibrosis in Ukraine, and how they don't have access to the new medications, and Israel has them, and what types of care protocols we use on kids here in Israel. And besides that, the girl was really in a bad way. She needed inhalation, she needed physiotherapy, which we provided.
They don't
And,
have any of that with them. Right.
they had some, they didn't have all. They came back actually a day later to repeat the treatment, so she could go on her way, I think, to Switzerland. So it was really nice to being able to help really in a unique position where they need this specific help.
You were
And,
the
I
right person
was
at the
one.
right time.
Exactly. You could say providence, or
That's
I
right.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, nothing heroic. It's not a
But those
war
are the-
zone.
that's
but
the
the
life
little
of a
things,
physician,
exactly.
that's-
Yeah, true. The other story is a woman who has what we learned later on is a terminal cancer, and she was really in acute pain, and we provided with pain medications, and as I said, every patient had started with what they need now, and then what is the backstory. So I sat there with her, and I learned that she has a 14-year-old, that she fled her home in a town next to Kiev, and she has nothing basically, and she's been told she's going to die in a matter of days. And her main concern was the little girl or the teenager would not fall into the hands of human traffickers. And my heart was like, oh my God. So called Jorge Diner, he's Hadassah International CEO, and I told him, listen, and Jorge was on the ground. He was the one organizing the mission. I told him, listen, we have to do something. I mean, we gave her fentanyl patch. We helped her with acute pain. She slept better. We have to do something, and through different connections and Polish government and whatnot, we found a home to place both the mother and the girl, somewhere in North Poland. They're still there. We were kind of back and forth with their physicians, trying to understand whether she's indeed terminal or how terminal she is. I mean, she's still alive, happy to say, 3 months now, so at least something Western medicine can do a little bit better. And the girl is finishing her school year through Zoom in Ukraine. So, I mean, interim good ending.
So let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about your research. So you're involved in a field called organoids.
Right.
And that's under the Wall Institute, as I said, of Translational Medicine. So what's translational medicine?
Okay, so I think it's actually a great question, because in my opinion, translation medicine is the way to practice research if you're a physician, or this is why physicians should practice medicine, should do research, and this is why the good researchers in the medical field are probably also physicians. And the basic meaning of translational research is the ability or the idea of taking findings from the bench and bringing them to the bedside of the patient. I'm really very lucky to be in this position at Hadassah, where, you know, I have at the Wall Institute, I have a basic laboratory, I have the clinic, I can, you know, go back and forth, literally back and forth from patients to the clinic, to the bench. And maybe you mentioned organoids, and this is another example of how research can be translational. So first, what are organoids, right? This sounds very sci-fi. Organoids are mini organs, and they're literally cell cultures. So you take some cells and you culture them to become 3D and to contain not just one type of cell, but different types of cells. And what is unique is that this mini organ resembles in many, many ways, biological ways, the organ it was taken from a specific patient. So my organoids would be probably different than your organoids, even if taken and cultured in the same way. And this opens a whole, you know, range of possibilities of doing personalized medicine. So if we take a sample and we grow it into an organoid, we can then test different drugs and medications that are specific to the specific patient. And currently in my lab, we're trying to understand, for example, how different asthma patients, or why do different asthma patients respond differently to different drugs. So we take samples from the nose, not a very pleasant procedure, but not horrible. It's not a biopsy. And we grow cells that resemble the lungs or the airways of the patient, and we try to compare them to healthy controls and see what makes them, you know, uniquely susceptible to pollen or viruses and stuff like that. Again, taking bedside in this case to the bench. So I think organoids are really a great tool to accomplish that.
What's Hadassah's role in this kind of research? Say worldwide, in Israel?
Well, we probably should mention that only last month Hadassah has established the Organoid Center, which is really one of its kind in Israel, and there are few in the world, but not many, dedicated to organoid research. So I study lungs, but the Organoid Center studies breast cancer and colon cancer and retinal diseases of the eye, and trying to understand basic biological questions or to drug screen for different issues. And we have been lucky enough to really be at the top of the field because first, you know, the vision of Hadassah to really dedicate a whole center to this mission, and also our collaboration with the people who invented this technology. So Professor Hans Clevers is a world-renowned scientist, probably, or at least on the list for Nobel Prize winners sometimes in the future, and he actively helped us in designing the center and really understanding how to build this kind of pipeline of you have a patient, you have the outcome where you wanna test, be it a drug or some other outcome in cancer research. How do you build this pipeline of bringing the biopsies, culturing the organoids, and testing the different things and back to the patient?
So let's switch gears a little bit. Your other interest, sleep.
Sleep, yes.
Everyone wants more and no one seems to get enough. Why is sleep so important?
Well, sleep is actually it does all connect. So my research interests are not really separated. So one of the main problems that kids and adults have during their sleep is breathing problems. So that's why I'm, as a lung specialist, is interested in stuff that are related to sleep, because again, there are a lot of breathing problems during sleep, and this is what I study also in the lab. But sleep is basically a pillar of health, and I think people are starting to understand it. So we all know that it's important to have a good diet, it's important to practice mindfulness, or kind of be relaxed, and to eat well, but also it's important to sleep well, because really sleep connects to different aspects of your life. And just this semester we're finishing a course for medical students that I opened because I'm so interested in this topic, and we covered basically all areas of life that or health that sleep is related, be it your brain, your heart, your emotional well-being. So really, you should sleep well if you want to function well.
So why are we all so sleep deprived, and what can we do about it?
Wow.
Or what should we do about it?
What should we do about it? First of all, Corona. This is one thing. Speaking of collaborative research, we published a study about a year and a half ago. When first wave of Corona ended, we looked at what happened to people's sleep worldwide, with researchers from the US and from Europe and even from Saudi Arabia. I have a good friend from my postdoctoral research who asked people in their surroundings, and we found, and it's been replicated many times, that Corona has really impacted our sleep. People are worried more, they sat in lockdown, they lost their jobs, so that these are some of the reasons. People tend to overthink a bit about sleep, some people, and this is what causes insomnia in some cases. So inability to go to sleep or wake up a lot, and this is the why. What should we do about it? There's simple stuff. Sleep hygiene is very important and often overlooked. So no phones in your bed, no screens in your bedroom. Probably no naps if it interferes with your ability to fall asleep, and no drugs. So sleep aids are really bad for your sleep, by the way. There are many other more impactful things. Physical activity is actually really good. So if you physically active, you will sleep better, not just that night but overall.
So disconnecting so we can fall asleep.
Yes, exactly.
Well, this has all been fascinating. For me, it's so meaningful to talk to somebody who's really, Hadassah's been part of your whole medical career. You went to school here.
Yes, so since 2004 I've been physically at Hadassah, and really I feel like I'm Hadassah, Hadassah is me. It's a second home.
You're part of the family.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. It's a pleasure to talk with you today, and I wish you best of luck in Chicago, and we'll see you there.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Dianne.
Thank you.